Regional Transportation Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagbo,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte,
Here.
Commissioner Dodson,
Here.
Commissioner Maloney, Commissioner Novak,
Here.
a quorum's present.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move to agenda item 3 tonight, which is our public comment period. I want to note for the record that we had late material that has been posted to the back there from Paula Peters and Hope Tingle, just for the record on that one. The first one that I have signed up for this evening didn't say whether he wanted to speak or not, but I'll just call it out. Richard Nagel, did you want to speak? Oh, okay, thank you for being a gentleman.
My name is Richard Daigle, for the record. I'm a resident of Carson City, and I am opposed to GIDs. The reason I'm opposed to GIDs is I don't think they'll go away once they get started. I think that the other thing is that asphalt maintenance is not broken out in any of the budgets, and it needs to have its own category. Without a specific category for asphalt maintenance, the money will just be siphoned off to other things, other purposes. It'll go for decorations, it'll go for sidewalks, it'll go for lighting, and it will have crumbled roads again. I moved here from California 8 years ago, and that's what we consistently voted for roads, and son of a gun, the money went into the general fund, time and time again. But if we have some kind of accountability structure, say this is where it's broken out and this is where it's going to be used for, that money, then that would be somewhat reasonable. But until that's broken out, and until we know that we're going to have direct funding for asphalt maintenance, we should not give anybody a blank check, and that's what a GID is. Thank you much.
Thank you. Danny, I have you listed. You said not sure yet. Are you having public comment?
Yeah, I turned it off, sorry. I just want to ditto Richard's statement, and I want to add, I appreciate everybody's being here today, and so nice to see public here as well. So I hope people will speak up and share their thoughts and ideas, because that's what this is all about, discussion and coming to a reasonable consideration that will get things done and do it fairly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Conant, did you want to speak? Here's Glenn.
Yes, my name is Glenn Conant. I am also against the GID. There's a few comments I'd like to make around that is, so the roads need repaired, I get it. But currently in statute, there is an avenue for this, supplemental governmental services tax, that's added on vehicle valuations. Everybody pays electric and gas cars. I'm not sure why that avenue isn't being pursued because it's already in place. And I just think that I read one of the letters at the end there where the lady talked about the V&T and all the money that's going into that. You know, if you have your own budget and it's a grocery bill or a pool table, seems like the city's buying the pool table. If we need the roads fixed, then there's more, that's more important to me than more trails and things like that. So anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you so much. Let's see. Rose Kruger, you've asked to speak at the end, or did you want to do the beginning? Come on. Okay, come on then.
We all know how that works. Okay, I'm a relo. I came from Southern California, and watched this destroy where I came from. I came to Northern Nevada for a way of life, for a type of focus and everything, and I don't really want to see it become California. I think the GID is one of those open-ended, just a few bucks here, a few bucks there, things that turn ginormous 10 years later.
Microphone.
Oh, got to be green. There you go.
So where do you want me to start, at the beginning?
Go ahead. Nope, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. And anyway, the point is, though, is I've seen this happen in all sorts of different little nigglings. $10 here, $30 there, $80, $100. When I owned property briefly in Southern California, I paid a special property tax identification, which was fair. There was no reason that the long-time paid-off retired lady on poor Social Security, but with a paid-off house, should have to pay for my roads, my new sewers, my new parks, and I had a special 20-year bond on my property tax with all the separate line accountabilities that paid for each and every one of these improvements where I lived within that town, within Chula Vista, California. And it was fair. Someone said, oh, you're paying, ugly word, Melrose, call it whatever you want so you don't have to deal with that ugly term. But the point is it was fair, and I thought it was fair when I bought in. You know, for 20 years, I pay for these improvements. And then, you know what I'm saying? And it was fair. It wasn't fair for the little old lady with the paid-off house to lose her house eventually to tax liens or to unpaid or suffer in the wintertime because she can't afford her utility bills or whatever it's been added to, because it got added all sorts of places everywhere. And this is the beginning, or actually a little more than the beginning, of that process happening here. And it does not end well. So if there's especially if there's a sunset on it, every tax should have a sunset before it's redone. But if there are special requests and it's made clear how neighborhoods can get that request if they want something in particular, if there's a way of putting this under constant approval and constant visibility, it's far better for everybody in this town 10 years from now. Except if you want to kind of sneak the money into the general fund under the eyes of the taxpayer. And GID sounds good, but it just doesn't work out well in the long run. And it hurts the people that are most vulnerable. And that's basically, whether I have more to say at the end of the discussion, where I'd like people to consider other options. I don't even know what kind of line items we're paying for currently.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Stuart Kimball, you've indicated you want to do it now. Come on up. Okay, come on up.
Yeah, you're damn right I want to say something. I've been in this area since '78. I graduated from Carson High, and unfortunately, when you look at Carson City as a beautiful, beautiful city, the cost of people to live here, especially our young, I'm 63 right now. You look in this room, I'm probably one of the younger guys in this room. Eventually, if we do have property, maybe it'll go to our kids and grandkids. And you look at our youth, they can't even afford housing. In this town, when I built my first house, you can go take a look at it. It's on 53 Pastor Way. It's probably about a 3,000 square foot house on an acre. I built the house for $80,000. I was 27 years old. I'm telling you right now, if the youth don't have a wealthy family, they can't even get into a house. I think the average house in Carson is probably over $400,000 if I'm correct. I think we should reverse things. I think we should lower the building permits, the sewer permits, the water permits. We should lower every single tax. I don't know how many of you have kids, you have grandkids. It's not going to affect me. I'm going to be dead probably in 20 years. But my daughter had to leave. She could not live here with 4 children because this area is too high for her to live. She can't afford the food, she can't afford the housing, and she made over $60,000 a year. My son works for Martin Iron Works, far better trade than I had when I built my house. I worked for Rayleigh's for 20 years, cutting meat. My wife worked for the medical center. She made about 15,000. I made about maybe 30. And we built this house now is probably a $600,000 house. We should not burden our kids. And every single one of us to think about that. Last time I came here, I came right on my bike. I come in here, they want to build a knowledge center. What knowledge center? Fancy word for a library. I said, why would you build a library? Kids, they don't check out books, not like I did in high school when I did book reports. I said, they need computers. I said, why don't we just build a two-story, add to the library, build a two-story up? I didn't even realize it was two-story. That's how long it's been since I've been to the library. So all we need is more computers. And that's what they did. They put more computers in, solved the problem. You don't need to spend $40 million. We need to be more responsible, more active. Unfortunately, I lost everything in 2007. It was fortunate in one way because I can relate to the young people. They don't make enough money to cover their expenses. I do Uber. It's a crying shame when you say a husband and wife working 12 hours, and I drive them after they get my ride to work. They can't afford a car, and they're living in an apartment at $1,800 a month that's run down in a drug-infested area. That's not living. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Lisa Partey?
Thank you. Okay, I had to write down my notes. So number one, I don't believe that we should ever have to rely on federal funding to construct and maintain roadways, because this is something that is considered critical infrastructure and should have been a line item in the city's budget since day one. That the city has kicked the can down the road all these years should be on those in charge and not on the few property tax paying people or citizens to have to make up in an emergent situation such as this. We don't need a GID, which is just bigger government and another office that will require staffing, supplies, and benefits. The agencies we already have and have had should have been managing this all along, as well as seeing to it that the city would have funds available. To me, this is neglect on the part of the city. Reasonable people don't run their household finances this way. It's like the city is a welfare recipient who gets a check, then spends it on frivolous and unnecessary things, and then suddenly realizes they forgot to buy food for the family, then comes back to the taxpayers for yet more money rather than buying only essentials within that budget. Federal funding always has strings attached, and taking money for this multi-use path project to go along with the globalist agenda, which is carbon reduction, which is not a benefit, is absurd. And lastly, these walkways next to the freeway should have been dirt paths until it was demonstrated how many people were going to actually use them before laying down a bunch of asphalt. There's no way to know if these will even be utilized because they're not peaceful and they're full of vehicle exhaust. And don't get me started on the senseless islands on Colorado Street. That's not a pedestrian thoroughfare to block people's driveways. Please stop the wasteful and unnecessary projects, focus on what's needed within the budget, and we have currently or cut back like the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Have Paula Peters. I'll mark that for you. Jim Shirk.
Hello. I've seen if everybody's put their head up and listened to citizens as they talk, you all have your heads down, so please quit doing that. I don't care what you're doing. Keep your head up. You know, I talked to neighbors and friends, and nobody knew about the workshop the city put on a couple of weeks ago. And I talked to them about the meeting tonight, and nobody knew about that. You need to get the word out to citizens about these important meetings because they're not getting information. Street funding is $21 million short. What the heck has city staff and this board of supervisors been doing all this time? If we're that much short, how come this hasn't come up periodically? Why haven't we increased the funding? There's no excuse for this. Budget, the city payment for this extreme advance in notice and overtime. We pay so much in overtime to city employees. We need to stop that. And we need to stop hiring and put a freeze on all wages till we get this worked out so we can take care of our roads. The GID could create a special tax assessment for properties for street repairs. I think it's wrong. And why is it wrong? Because it's totally unfair to citizens. Some citizens have no cars or can't drive, they're handicapped, and or have one car, and other citizens have 4, 5, or 6 cars that drive on our streets, and we're all supposed to be paying the same? It's not right. And if you pay rent, you're not going to pay anything and still drive on our streets. Those who did the survey that's brought up in the newspaper here, they were not asked for identification to prove they were citizens of Carson City, but they took the survey, and now we're basing everything on this survey of 33 people, and we have a citizens of 58,000 to 60,000 people, and we're going to go on 33 surveys. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what you're doing in the Board of Supervisors, but it's rolled down year after year, and you're not doing anything for our streets year after year. And you just sit there and do nothing. And if you attend the city meetings, you'll see the city manager sit on her computers like you guys were doing, and that's all she does is work on her computer. She does nothing else at the meetings, and we need supervision over her so we can get these roads repaired. And I think anything that you're going to do and tax citizens when you're $21 million short for I don't know how many years, and we pay the burden for you not doing your job is wrong on every essential, however you look at it. I'm lost for words because I can't believe this is happening.
Midge Breeden? Oh, you can't decide? Come on up, Midge.
Didn't sign up to talk, but sure, if I get a chance. I think, do GID districts mean individual districts pay different amounts? Okay, then that's what I don't want to see, is rich parts of the city having good roads and poor parts of the city not having good roads. So otherwise, do what you have to do.
Thank you. Anita Haberfield? Says one. Sorry. Speak at beginning of meeting. Okay.
Push the button.
You're green already.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anita Haberfield, I've lived in this area for 49 years, and it appears that I'm in the minority. I do support the GID. I think that the problem hasn't really been kicked down the road for decades. I think there's been a hope that maybe revenues were going to increase and everything would be better, but it hasn't, and our roads are terrible. I support the GID. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Maxine Neitz?
Maxine Neitz, civil engineer and 30-plus year resident. I first want to quote from someone who escaped both Soviet Russia and the Nazis. Every individual is a community. They have the power to create a community and to bring life to a community. It is now time, it is past time, for the city to start paying attention to the individuals of this community, not developers from elsewhere. I'm against this tax. The taxpayers are tapped out. We have no more money to give to the city to make up for this mismanagement or for anything else. The streets are the way they are because of the abuse they have suffered from developers' heavy equipment vehicles. So I have an idea that you most probably have never even thought of. Make the developers pay for maintenance of the streets. Start by adding a street tax to every developer application submitted. Add more for each heavy equipment vehicle on a per-week basis, and finish off with a tax on the buyers of the new development buildings to pay for the new roads that they need that the city will have to maintain. I suggest you charge by the foot of roadway divided by the number of houses sold, and that would be a fair division of making the people who are causing the new roads and causing the roads to deteriorate to pay their fair share. And I just want to remind you one more time again, we taxpayers have no more money. I, for one, cannot and will not pay this extortion.
Please don't do that. I don't have anyone else signed up, so I'll ask on just a quick, come on up.
Hi, I'm Mary Sonata for the record. Just would like to kind of support what Anita just said. We have a serious problem with the roads in this city, and it didn't just happen overnight. Brad Bonkowski, bless his heart, tried to get the board to face the issue and do something about it many years ago. The problem needs to be solved. We can't just keep saying we're going to find some pot of money that's going to fall from the sky. It's not going to happen. We have to be realistic. We have to come up with a way to finance maintaining our local roads because they're getting bad. And if we don't, we're going to have a deteriorating community. And for crying out loud, we are the state capital. Do we really want people to come into our city and drive around and see the roads with the big stripes of holes in them and everything else that's happening? It's really disgusting to me. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but it was like 10, 15 years ago that the board bit the bullet and said, if we don't fund the sewer and water system improvements, they're gonna collapse. And while I certainly don't enjoy paying 4 times more for my water and sewer now than I did when I first moved here, I really do like being able to turn on my water and flush my toilet. So we are getting to the same point with our local roads. If something isn't done, they're going to deteriorate to the point where they're going to be undrivable, and I don't think we should do that. So I appreciate the work that has been done by everybody to put together those workshops. If people didn't know about them, I understand you can't exactly go out and beat people over the head and say, pay attention, this is happening. So anyway, I support moving forward with a funding process, and it appears from the work that is done that creating the GIDs would be the most stable way to maintain the funding.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do I have anyone else that wants to make? Mr. Vitale? Oh, I'll put you on for after. Sure, John. Do I have anyone else? Come on up.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Horn. I'm a property owner and a business owner, and I don't like taxes. I think that if you're going to have taxes, they have to be necessary and fair and be across all properties. And we have the amount of properties that are exempted and the amount of properties that are taxed. The taxed properties are less, and so what the city is doing is they place a burden upon a select group. We are the state capital. We have federal property that is not taxed, and I understand governments don't like to be taxed, they like to issue taxes. So they can't be exempt. The federal government isn't part of the county, but the federal government uses our streets. The state government isn't part of the county, but the state government uses our streets. We pay, the property owners pay for all the counties because we're the capital city, so we maintain it. We pay for the federal government to operate. A tax, to be right and to be fair, has to be for everyone. The the exemption process, or whoever's in charge of the exemption process, should be not exempting. You would find that we would have a lot more funds and stop burdening our people for everybody's taxes. I don't want to pay federal taxes for you to maintain our streets for the federal or the state. And we have a right to the equal protection of the law. I'm a citizen, and government should be securing our rights, and I'm not seeing that. And when you burden our properties, if we don't pay, you're going to take it away. And if you're making a cheap, affordable housing, and you're going to take people and put them into houses to take away our houses, then you're not going to have a supportive person voting for you guys in the next election. And I just have to be straight. I appreciate the job you're doing. You're well qualified. I just don't appreciate the fact that the taxes are not equal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else? Okay, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is the approval of our minutes of October 11th, 2023. Does any member of the commission have any changes? If not, I'll accept a motion for approval, please. Oh, did you have something?
I reached out and there was just a missing word that I let Tamar know about, so.
Okay, would you like to make the motion to approve as amended?
So I move to approve the agenda, or the minutes rather, from October 11th, 2023 with the correction discussed, or the correction shared with Tamar.
I will second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5A. For the record, as a reminder to everyone in the audience, this is a discussion-only item, so there are no decisions being made by this commission. Just to put that on the record in case you were thinking we were making any actions this evening. We are not. So just so that you're aware of that. This is a presentation regarding potential mechanisms to increase funding for the construction and maintenance of Carson City's roads and related transportation infrastructure. Do we have our presenter on the line? Chris, did you want to introduce the item, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Catherine Hansford is online. She had some travel challenges and wasn't able to join us in person today, but she will take us through the presentation. But before she does that, I wanted to just to give a little background. So as was noted during the public comment, we had 2 public workshops. I noted that at the last RTC meeting on October 4th and October 9th. And during that time, we had 106 or so attendees at those meetings. And as again was noted, 33-something surveys were completed at those meetings, and that's the information that was provided in the material. Those were surveys filled out by people who attended those meetings. We haven't compiled any of the results to this point. Other items, so we wanted to get that initial feedback and then provide that feedback to this board to continue the discussion about what we heard. Again, that's provided in the exhibits, as well as to present a case study on GIDs as they've been enacted in other agencies, in particularly the Western U.S., Montana, Utah, Texas, and some other locations that have roads purpose GIDs using special assessments, not a property tax. So that's the bulk of what this presentation is, and Catherine's going to be walking us through. And then, as we have the discussion, totally open to your feedback and your input as board members on things we should continue to study versus in the GID or other features, mechanisms that we've been looking at. This was a touch point to provide an update and get some clarification and direction on the GID concepts particularly, but also on the larger project of road funding, local road funding for Carson City.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to turn over to Catherine unless you have something, Madam Chair.
Let me make sure. Catherine, were you able to hear the public comment this evening? Let's see if we can hear her.
Can you speak, Catherine? Can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
Oh, we cannot hear you. And I assume we're not muted on our side. And if I need to, I can probably wing the presentation.
So we have none from her. Did she check for a microphone? Catherine, did you check for a microphone? We don't have a release one to request that here, right? Where we can say unmute.
Okay.
She's not
Okay.
muted on our end.
Okay, well, if Catherine, you can continue to plug away at that, and I will give it a shot here on the presentation. And if you get hooked up and connected in, then we'll have you join. Okay, cool. So walking through the presentation here again, this was Catherine's, but we just as a reminder as to where we are in our project. So this slide here is the funding gap. Current revenue for street items is around $10 million. Our operating expenses is 5.5, which leaves around 4.5 million for projects. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. And therefore, the funding gap is approximately $21 million, and that's the number we've been using for discussion purposes. We're currently looking at 4 mechanisms for improving or increasing funding for local roadways in particular. These are here listed on the screen, which include a local roads special improvement district, the general improvement district, which is the focus of today's topic, a special purpose transportation sales tax, which is a new sales tax, and an infrastructure sales tax, which would be, in this case, a continuation of a rollover of the V&T sales tax being used to pay down the V&T bonds. These have been discussed and vetted at previous meetings, both at the RTC and the Board of Supervisors, with their implementation recommendations outlined below. So notably on the sales tax, we're looking to prepare a ballot question for that in November of 2024. GIDs themselves hold a lot of potential for flexibility, accountability, and creativity. I mean, we've heard comments today related to accountability and making sure that the funding is going to where it's intended to go. There are 2 main powers of a GID. The first is special roads-related functions, which are things like snow plowing and street lighting. And then the other purpose of the GID can be much broader in terms of roadway reconstruction, sidewalk reconstruction, and things of that nature. So there's two main prongs, if you will, of a general improvement district. Basically, one of the key factors there is the GID, the requirements of a GID have to be established at the formation of the GID. A GID could not do more than what it's established to do. It can do less, but it can't do more. So I think that's a critical component there. Our primary objective is a citywide, for a citywide pavement condition index of a 56. That's out of 100 scale. I shouldn't touch anything. And then 56 is our target for local roads, a fair condition. Our current condition for local roads is around a 49 or so citywide average pavement condition index. That's on a scale from 1 to 100, or 0 to 100, with 0 being completely failed and 100 being a brand new, freshly paved road, just for an example. The focus of a GID would be for pavement maintenance and reconstruction of our local roads. So as mentioned, the General Improvement District, primary focus is for pavement maintenance, reconstruction, repair, pothole sealing, crack filling, slurry sealing, preventative maintenance of the local roads. Other functions it could do if it was established to do so would include things like sidewalk maintenance, right-of-way and snow removal, streetlight, traffic operations, traffic signals, things like that, if it were established to do so. One of the goals and requirements of a GID, and Catherine may have to clarify later if she can connect here, is the development of a local road maintenance program. This would be a document or a program that would be established specifically to address the actions of the GID, specifically like the GID is going to reconstruct roads. The local roads maintenance plan would outline the requirements and steps involved with that particular feature. The boxes there below, an estimated amount could be generated of up to $14 million. We'd have to prepare an annual report. A GID would be required to prepare an annual report and present it to a GID board for those purposes. An annual budget, similar to what we do at the Board of Supervisors, at this commission at the RTC, would have to be prepared and presented on the year's expenditures. And an annual report describing the accomplishments of that would also have to be prepared and presented annually. The steps to create a GID are outlined on this screen. It would include the development of a specific plan, that local roads maintenance plan as I outlined, which would describe the boundaries of the GID, annual estimates of costs, and then those specific activities that GID would be performing and established to perform. A mail written notices would be provided to all property owners within the boundary of the GID about the city's intent to create it and what the requirements would be. And there'd have to be a date notice for a public hearing so that everybody could come and discuss that. And then a GID could be created at that public hearing, provided there is not a protest of a majority of the property owners. And that could be created. There would be the requirement outlines that the GID would be created possibly at that hearing if there is not a majority protest by the property owners. It could be created by the Board of Supervisors.
No, it's majority of property
Majority of
owners.
property owners.
Just for a clarification on that, for a protest, since there's a question, I'll try to help and answer along the way. It depends on where you draw your boundaries for your general improvement district. So pretend it had 20,000 parcels. If that was the number, then you'd need 10,001 parcels, which could be one guy may own several parcels. We do have that in Carson, but it would be the number of parcels. It's a very high bar, no doubt about that. Just thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your clarification,
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you.
Go ahead.
On the funding and management side, the GID funding, by law, any property owner that receives a special benefit would be required to, would be charged that special assessment. So this gets to the items that were discussed as one of the public comments in terms of equity in pay. All properties that are identified as real property would be assessed a special assessment. NRS is specific and only excludes school districts. All other properties per NRS are real property and could be assessed a GID, a special assessment.
So for clarification on that one, there was a question, I think it was Mr. Horn, that was concerned about the state offices, the federal offices. It's up to us when we put a plan together whether or not we would exempt those. So the only one by law that is exempted unless they choose is a school district. So we could in fact charge the federal government and the state this fee, which they currently don't. They currently pay hardly anything, so I'm not advocating one way or the other, just trying to give you information that they would be eligible to be charged.
When we look at how we would charge that, still looking at some research, but we're leaning toward and most likely would be recommending adding to the city's monthly utility bills as opposed to the city's property tax bills. This would be a more regular and consistent income, similar to your water or your utility or sewer bills that you get. On the GID side, the management side of things, the GID must establish accounting practices, auditing practices, a budget for management standards, and must hold at least one annual public meeting to discuss its particular activities. Again, the GID may appoint a local district managing board to operate its affairs, but the GID also has a board that governs it.
So are we by chance able to get Catherine yet? No?
No.
Oh, did we get you?
Did you get me?
I gotcha.
Oh,
That sounds great. Yay.
I don't know what I touched.
Good.
Wow. Okay. Magic. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened there.
That's all right. But Catherine, so my question to you is, do you want to go through all the slides and then have us ask you the questions, or do you want questions by slide?
I think go through because we're actually getting pretty close to the
Okay, we'll do that then, and we'll come back.
presentation of the main
Okay.
parts of it. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Kath-
Chris, I can't actually see the presentation.
We are on
Do you want to
assessments.
finish it?
No, we're on assessment collection. Can you pick up
Okay.
there?
All right.
Slide 9.
Yes. Yes, I can. And I heard Chris say that most likely, really the recommendation is to collect with utility bills. And I'll just start from the top here. So as mentioned, all the properties in this case could receive a bill. Whereas if you're putting bills onto the property tax roll, then those properties like the federal and state governments, churches, nonprofits, all of those types of properties that don't receive an assessed value of property tax bill, then you can still send the bill to them. A really key point is that the city's utility billing software already has a way to flag properties that have been granted a discount based on the criteria that you have. And NRS allows for GID to create payment programs and discounted assessments as well for qualifying customers. And you can set up what your criteria is for that. But it's much easier to put that into your utility billing system, and you can make any mid-year changes. So if you had someone who qualifies for a discount, let's say in January, you're not waiting until the property tax bill goes out in the fall for the new year to make that change. So you can keep your customer base information up to date, keep that cash flow more regular. And then finally, your communications with your customers can be on a much more timely and easier basis, because you can use both your utility bill inserts, but also other city communications platforms to reach your customers.
Public
Okay,
workshops, go ahead.
So we held 2 public workshops, and we did notice those workshops pretty extensively. That slide keeps going. There it is. Okay. We use the workshops as an opportunity to educate people in a very chronological order. So we had 4 stations. The first station was showing the public what the road network is, what are the local roads versus what are the regional roads. And it gave people an opportunity to talk about the roads around their house and talk to the experts about what was going on in their neighborhood. And then that moved on to discussing the way that the funding works. And then they would work their way around being able to talk to the city employees and experts in this field. And then finally, they would end up at the GID workstation. And that was my station where I was, and I was talking to people about this concept and how it could work. And we handed out comment cards so that people could give us just general comments if they want, or comments about the GID. And we also handed out some questionnaires at that time. And as Chris already said, there were over 100 attendees between those 2 workshops. The workshops were held between 5:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. as well. I did want to mention that. So we really did try to work around people's work schedules and get as maximum attendance as we could. So we were accepting responses to those questionnaires at the workshop, and then we also posted it online, and we also let people know that they could mail their questionnaire into Public Works or turn it in personally if they wanted to do that after the workshop. So with regards to the GID questionnaire, we had asked, what kind of property do you own? And most of the respondents that were in attendance owned residential property. We did have a couple of others, but that was the vast majority. We asked them, how much would you consider reasonable to pay monthly to keep your local roadways maintained? And the responses we received were that most people were willing to pay a monthly assessment. We asked if they'd be willing to pay between $1 and $10, $11 and $20, or more than $20. So of the respondents, you see that blue bar, those are the people who said they were not willing to pay anything. The orange bars are people who are willing to pay something. And you can see that the majority of people are somewhere between $1 and $20 a month. This is not a large response. So, admittedly, it's still a small number of people who've responded, but it does give an indication. And we did have a few more questionnaires trickle in after I had already created this graph. And those questionnaires also supported somewhere between $1 and $20 a month. Oh, just to say too, that graph shows all the responses from people who were in attendance at the workshop. We've had very few come in of people who've answered the questionnaire online. So we've not presented that. Okay. We also asked a couple of somewhat more pointed questions, and the reason for asking these questions is that as I was doing the case study research, there were some questions that came up consistently in public workshops that other case study cities had held regarding the same issue, how to fund local road maintenance and improvements. And so this is the first one. Should unimproved and vacant properties be charged an assessment? And most respondents felt that vacant properties should be charged an assessment. They stated that, and there's just some examples, better roads raise property values. But there were a few folks who did say that there was no desire to pay for a vacant property. So we did hear both, but the majority responded that the vacant properties should be charged an assessment. So that was interesting because in the case studies that we looked at, it was quite a split kind of question. There were quite a few people who were for it, quite a few people who were against it. That's why we asked the question. Second, should properties used exclusively for parking be charged an assessment? That was another thing we saw in the case studies. And most respondents responded that parking lots should be charged an assessment because you need the roads to access the lots, and parking lots generate additional traffic. Some reasons against charging for parking lots was commercial properties will charge the customers more potentially, and those businesses are paying because they are paying the sales tax, transportation. So those are just a couple of things that we wanted to hear from people, and I think these are ideas that would be explored a lot more in the future if the city continues with the idea of a GID. We had a big board that included a matrix of the different potential assessment methodologies. And the board listed these 6 different methodologies, and then it had reasons why it might be a good methodology and reasons why it might be a poor methodology to choose. The 6 methodologies are based on front footage, so how much road is in front of your property, a flat parcel charge, a parcel acreage charge, so you pay more if you have more acreage, a livable building square feet, paying a fee based on how many building square feet you have, excluding things like patios and garages, a vehicle trip generation methodology, and an assessed value methodology. And this graph might be just a little confusing. I want to explain it to you. The lowest ranking, so that number 1, that had the most responses. That was the greatest support was for the number 1. So the greatest support was for an estimated vehicle trip generation methodology. The second that got the most support in terms of responses was front footage of a parcel. Then the third was a flat parcel charge. The fourth was assessed value. The fifth was having it based on parcel acreage. And last was having it based on the livable building square feet. And again, these responses are just from those who attended one of those 2 workshops. Okay. So moving on a little to the case studies that we looked at. We looked at how local roads were being funded in select cities in Texas, Colorado, Oregon, Montana, and Utah, so staying in the Western United States, bearing in mind that for each state, the exact funding mechanism that they're using is shaped by their state law. So each state has something a little bit different. There's not another state that has something that is exactly the same as a GID as in Nevada. But they do still provide a lot of good information and comparable methodologies. In Nevada, the NRS only requires that you provide a reasonable methodology. There's no prescribed methodology, and so that's why we are presenting these 6 different ideas. The key findings, and I hope you have the chance to read the memo on the case studies, but I'm just going to run through those key findings. First, that assessments should be based on the project cost to maintain the streets at a level of service that is established by the GID board. So that if you set a level of service standard, then you can determine what is the cost to maintain the roads at that level of service, and then you could create a work program out of that estimated cost. So that seems like a good option for Carson City. They're very measurable objectives that you work through to determine the assessment amounts. Most cities do have a fee waiver program for vacant lots. So we heard from respondents that they felt vacant lots should be charged something. You could have some kind of, and I don't know that you would want a fee waiver program, but you can certainly build up a structure where vacant lots pay something, but not the full amount, for example. So that I think should be really looked into. Other cities charge some institutional properties less than their full allocation of cost. So as already has been mentioned, Nevada school districts cannot be charged road assessments unless their board consents to it. But for all other properties, the city can charge the full assessments. But you also have the ability to, you can consider reduced assessments if that's something that the board feels is an appropriate thing to do. Many of the case study cities use their fee to raise a portion of their funding needs, so they are not raising the full amount from their fee mechanism. So really, they're using other sources. It could be general fund, it could be grants, it could be another sort of intergovernmental transfer that they're receiving. But I think the takeaway from that is that the city should continue to pursue all supplemental funding that's available to it, and also to gradually implement an assessment amount to fund the project. So if you do want to get to funding the full amount through the assessments, that you go about it in a gradual manner. Most of the case studies use estimated vehicle trips as the methodology, at least for a portion of the cost allocation. And although they use estimated vehicle trips, they try to simplify it by bracketing different types of land uses into one category. So, for example, you might have several different types of residential, but they get pushed together into one bucket of residential. You might have several types of businesses that get pushed together into a commercial category. The reason being that the more complicated you make the methodology, the more granular you get on a parcel to parcel basis, the higher the administration cost becomes. It becomes more difficult to administer. And so we are considering that, And talking with staff, we're looking at coming to you with 3 assessment methodologies and structures, and to eliminate, at least start with eliminating 2 of those 6 methodologies that were originally presented. And those 2 would be the front footage of the parcel. And I know you would say, why? Because that ranked highly. And the reason why is that I think a lot of the respondents who selected that hadn't talked to me or a member of staff about it, because those people I did talk to said, well, that doesn't work. And this is the reason why, is that it becomes extremely complicated for the city to calculate all that, for every single parcel in Carson City to calculate what the footage is on a city road. And then you have a lot of instances where you have, say, homes that are not on a Carson City road, they're on a privately maintained road. You have situations like cul-de-sacs where all of the lots might be the same size lot, same sort of socio-demographics, families in all of the homes, but those on the cul-de-sac are paying less than those who front the main road. So I certainly would recommend that methodology be dropped. And then the other one to drop would be the livable building square feet methodology. It did rank at the bottom. And also in developing the database, we have run into some difficulties with that, with getting all of the data that would support that type of fee structure. So so those 2, I think I would say to remove them and just concentrate on the 4 that are left. Finally, all of the case studies charge the same cost per unit to residential and non-residential land uses. And when I say per unit, I mean, for example, if you based the fee on a fee per trip, that fee per trip be the same, whether it's a residential trip or a non-residential trip. We've seen the case studies where a couple of the cities didn't do that, and then they've moved towards doing that. There were none of the case studies today that charge different rates for different types of land uses. There are some that started out doing that and have moved away from it because of equity issues. Okay. This graph shows some road maintenance charges. It actually shows the road maintenance charges for single family home in all of the case study cities that we looked at. And so you see the range there, about $3 in Loveland, Colorado, and going up to about $23 in Bozeman, Montana. So they're falling within that range of the $1 to $20 a month, with the exception of Bozeman, which is just a little bit higher. Thank you, Chris. Do you want to go to the next slide? Okay. As I think you'll recall from the prior time we met with you, we launched an online survey fairly early on in this process last year, where we asked questions that were more to do with just the general state of roads and how people wanted to gauge how people are feeling about the roads and what they would like to see done. And so I have a few pie charts here, but I'm really just going to concentrate on the key findings from this online survey, because we've now had 173 respondents. The survey is still online. First of all, most of the respondents are unhappy with the condition of Carson City's local roads. Go ahead, Chris. That most respondents want their streets repaired to protect their property value. Go ahead, Chris. Most respondents feel that the roads, local roads, are unsafe for vehicles and unsafe for pedestrians. And most respondents say they alter their driving because of the poor road conditions. for example, having to go around potholes, and that they are willing to pay something to fix the problem. In this survey, we asked if they would be willing to pay the equivalent of a coffee shop latte. So, that's probably around $5 or so, which was lower than what we had asked in the questionnaire later on and at the workshops. But we have had quite a lot of respondents to this question. And again, you can see in that pie chart that there is support to pay something for maintenance of local roads. So the next steps are to continue with the GID assessment analysis, as has been outlined in this presentation. For staff to take a deeper dive and think about how they would manage design and construction of projects, because city doesn't have that level of staffing to manage the projects that could be funded with the additional revenue stream. So that needs to be worked out. There will be at least one more public workshop in early 2024. And that we will come back and present the analysis of GID assessment methods and the amounts by customer type in a report to the Board of Supervisors in February or early of March 2024 for direction. So that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much for that, Catherine. Does any members of the commission have a question? Or want to start with questions? No? Okay, I'll give it a shot. I want to try to go through some of the public comments and make sure, because again, this is a presentation only, but I take it as a workshop in reality. We have a lot of people here that had questions or comments, and so I think it's a wonderful educational opportunity to discuss options. So I'm gonna start with some that, or I could wait, but she said she wanted to talk afterwards, so I'll use her written public comment. So one of the issues was they thought the meetings were held during business hours, so the public could not attend. I wanted to reiterate or re-understand that the meetings were at 5:30, so they were not at the business hours. Is that correct? I just want to put
That
it
is
on the
correct.
record. You indicated that you were going to do another public workshop. We don't do them a lot, but can we do that on a Saturday?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to suggest, just as thoughts, just putting things out there. This is again only a discussion item, but I would like to make sure that anyone in the public that wants to attend a workshop would have the opportunity to do so. Let's talk about, let's see, I don't know that this is really yours, but why didn't the city budget for these expenses years ago? So in general, I'm going to assume that you've looked at other studies and other issues, and that the major concern or things is we used gas tax. That is a common governmental tax that's used to repair roads. I don't think we're the only jurisdiction that used that as their silo of money, and they put it out there to do that. As time has gone on, like everyone else, if your car or your old pickup or whatever used to get 12 miles to the gallon, and as time has gone on, what has happened? The vehicles are more efficient. And the more efficient they are, the less gas tax came into the system, right? And so is our gas tax flat? Relatively flat instead of growing, where the cost of road repair is exponentially growing. So I just want to reiterate, I don't think it's that you don't have any boards or responsible elected people or any other such thing. It's decisions that we all make, and you weigh all of the needs of the community. And we tend to rely upon our fixed revenue sources. So if I wanted to say, oops, gas tax is only bringing me 4.5 million. That's all I'm gonna get for the next 10 years is 4.5 million. It's not exponentially growing. And as the trend is going to electric vehicles, it's getting worse for us because they're paying, how much road tax are they paying? Zero, right? They're paying zero. So we have lots of converging issues that are occurring. I'll get to public comment again after this board does its part. So then you're forced to do one of two things: cut the budget somewhere else and move it to roads. And I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm not. But you're going to give something up to get it. So I'm going to lose the fire truck. I'm going to lose the sheriff vehicle. I'm going to cut the force. I'm going to cut anything that doesn't have a federal dollar attached to it, because I can't cut those. They have specific purposes that they have to be spent on. And much of the budget, unbeknownst to most people, is siloed dollars. They have to go for the purpose in which we told you we would spend them, right? So when you tax, you do a gas tax, a road tax, we don't get to spend it anywhere. For instance, Carson City, what a wonderful place, right? You guys passed a 5-cent property tax for senior center services. Wow, I think that's wonderful. You passed a sales tax to help our parks and recreation system. That's the only place we spend that money. So when you say, I don't want trails and things like that, don't pick those. Those are coming out of special money that was designed that the people voted on. So I want to be really clear on this, that there isn't anyone here that wants to kick a can down the road or not deal with our roads. We took ARPA funding that we got extra money that came in, and we designated $2.5 million to the local roads. Woohoo, we said we got new money, give it to the roads. I heard a comment tonight that said, don't use any federal money for road repair. Well, I'm only speaking just for myself. I'm willing to get those dollars so I don't have to charge you those dollars. You pay federal taxes, and I'm happy to bring them back home to Carson City. So we handled, I'm just looking through all the public comments. The one I don't have is I heard a public comment on why aren't we looking at the supplemental vehicle tax that we can charge through DMV? I didn't see that on our list, Catherine. Right? Is that the other penny?
Madam Chair, it may have been addressed in the original, the
That's
first
what I
memo
thought.
at the beginning of the study. I don't have that memo in front of me. I think it may have been one of the 8 or 12 options we looked at originally. I can certainly follow up with this board on that memo and provide you that information.
I think that would be wonderful, just to put that back out in your next workshop, since it was a question tonight. And I think it's important that we always answer the questions that the people have if we can. Doesn't mean anyone's going to love the answers, but we should at least address them. Okay, so let's look on your slide 3, if we can. Can you talk to me a little bit more on the other two options? Because we seem to be concentrating on the GID this evening, but technically there is the special purpose sales tax that we're looking to bring to a ballot. And then we also have the option of the infrastructure sales tax. That's the completion ride of our V&T tax that we could use. And I'd like to explore those a little more with the public so that we have full transparency of all the options and what we're doing. And then my question, so how much money is potentially raised under the special purposes sales tax?
We estimate generally 4 to 4.5 million a year.
4 to 4.5. And then how much off our infrastructure sales tax? So we can give all the,
If we were to get all of the money from that sales tax being half, the 1/8 of a cent being half of a quarter cent, we generate 2 to 2.5 million a year. For a total of 6 to 7-ish million.
the $21 million gap that's been identified, does that include lighting, snow removal, and all the other issues, or strictly the road repair portion?
It's primarily pavement maintenance, almost entirely. But it does include things like crack sealing, pothole filling, day-to-day maintenance, in addition to full reconstruction of the pavement.
One of the recommendations that I saw in here is that we open up the GID, allowing everything. The whole bucket comes in. Versus I heard a question tonight or concerns that it would not go to general fund. So let me be clear on that right away. It would not go to general fund, but it has the option of what is in the GID. And should it include your sidewalks and your street lights and curbs and gutters and all of those natures. So we also have a decision point. So you have one thing that says, put it all in because you have to do it at the beginning, or you can't change your mind later and put that in, versus should we say, no, we're solely gonna do it to fix the roads. And we're gonna 100% put the money to the road. So that's something that I think we need to further explore
Yes.
and really have a dialogue with the community to decide what they favor, right? Do you want the all-in, anything dealing with the road, or do you want us to concentrate solely on the pothole in the road itself, right? But some things, just in my mind, sitting on this commission a lot, we have rules that depending on the type of thing you do to the road, it's mandatory that we fix an ADA corner ramp,
Correct.
right? So I just bring that to your attention to teach, right? So that we're all in this together, understanding what's happening. Sometimes it's not that we want to do something, but if you rebuild that road, we do not have a choice but to do the ADA access points on the corners. We have to do it. It's not you have to do it. And I know it's hard to understand, but I just really want to bring out the questions that the public was bringing up tonight to make sure that we try to cover as many of them in the next workshop. And then I'm wondering, when you were asking them questions and things of that nature, just the thought processes is to really help the public, help all of us in the decision-making arenas. While I appreciate the surveys or all these types of things, is how can I reach more people? Certainly the number of surveys that are reported in here are not significant enough for me to utilize those for my decisions, right? It's just not significant enough. 33 responses isn't going to do it for me. So what are some methods or ways that you think we could do, and could they be drafted a little bit differently? Like, should vacant property be in, yes or no? Should state and federal properties be charged, yes or no? I think I'm really looking for the public, if we're gonna do a GID, to help us craft what it looks like, right? Because instead of, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I get the yes and the no. I get that part, right? I do. But if we're having it, what does it look like? And so I just ask you all to help us really answer those questions, to say, if you're going to do it, I think you should we put it on the utility bill and do it monthly? Because that's easier for people to pay a little bit at a time versus on your property tax where you're paying it quarterly and it's more expensive. I'm not convinced of anything, and I just want you all to help us know what is best for our community as a whole. What's the best answer for that? I told you all I'm coming back, and you all get to come up and make your comment. Some of you are new to the process, but first we speak, then you get to come up and give us, and you can answer any of my questions that I'm putting out there, or give me more ideas. I think we're open, and I want to stress that tonight. We're open to your ideas. And if you truly believe our current budget already has the money to handle this, and you have an idea, bring it on. Tell me what to cut. I am happy to listen to that, right? I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying we know everything, but gosh, if you know where we can grab $21 million out of my $100 million general fund and you tell me I can cut 1/5 of my workforce, I tell you from my heart, I don't think so. Can we find little pockets of things that we do? I will tell you, yes, all of us can, right? Okay, I won't go to the movies. I won't buy the Starbucks. I won't, but I'm not going to come up with $21 million. But I ask you all too, maybe 21 million isn't where you want to go. Maybe you want to tell us you're only willing to support 10 million. Help us decide what you want this to look like. So those are just general comments that I have. Is there anything that I missed? I know Lisa was taking notes while people were speaking. Did we miss something that we should address that the public comments? Was there anything else?
Well, at the open house, and I just really appreciate, I saw a lot of folks who are here, or some folks anyway, at the open house, and a couple of comments that I received. One was questioning about if there are, within the city, if some roads are failing and some roads aren't, shouldn't we put the money to the failing roads versus money to, the slurry seal and the crack sealing? And Chris, if you don't mind, can you speak to why the maintenance is much more cost effective and how we can get more for the dollar?
Sure. So in general, the cost of reconstruction is significantly more expensive than the cost of preservation. And reconstruction means removal and replacement of the pavement. And generally speaking, a good rule of thumb is around $1.5 million per mile for roadway reconstruction. Whereas preservation, a slurry seal like we've done on Mountain Street or Medical Parkway or Silver Sage or Solomon, things like that, are generally around, I want to say, $400,000 to $500,000 a mile. So we're able to do 3 times more preservation than reconstruction. And that means we're going to focus on keeping our good roads good and in lieu of reconstructing a mile here or a mile there each year. We can do more preservation than we can reconstruction.
Another question was, why are some roads, why do arterials, if you will, get more attention? So the fixing and the efforts on the Roop Street or to school zones or those, why does it seem that they consistently get repaired when some of the residential roads don't, and some of the residential roads are in terrible repair? So is there someone who could speak to that? Chris, if you can, or Darren, or?
Well, the Regional Transportation Commission, this board, and with support from staff, has adopted the city's pavement preservation plan, pavement management plan specifically. And that plan outlines our process of identifying, prioritizing, selecting, and building projects. And in that plan, we've outlined the focus of our funding is going to go toward collector and arterial classified streets. And there's some reasons for that. One of the reasons for that is those are the ones that tend to be more heavily used by most people. They provide that connection from the east to the west, to the north to the south portions of the city. The other reason is those are the roads that are eligible for federal funding. So we can go out and get federal funding in cooperation with NDOT or the Federal Highway Administration to be used on those roads. We cannot use the majority of federal funding on our local roads. The only funding source we can use on local roads is safety funds that I'm aware of at this time. So those are the primary 2 reasons that are outlined in that pavement management plan as to why we're directing the funding to those areas.
Thank you. And then in determining when a road has major work done, can you speak to the dig once philosophy and what is taken into account when there's a project, let's say Long Street, East Long Street, and talking about the water and the sewer and that kind of thing. I know that when we're talking about roads, we also want to be mindful of infrastructure, and we don't want to fix a road, pave a road, and then a year later tear it up to replace water, sewer, or to fix infrastructure that is failing. So would you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, one of our goals, and we do this annually and actually multiple times a year, we sit down with our utility divisions at the city, the water division, the stormwater division, and the sewer division, and we coordinate on their needs as well as our needs from a transportation division perspective. And they have a number of failing infrastructure underground as well. Pipes get old, they need to be replaced and things like that. And so, like you mentioned, rather than have them do their project on some street and then us do a project on some other street and stormwater working on some other street over there, and four roads are torn up, we try to focus those dollars all together on a single road, replace all the infrastructure that we can at that time, and we can leverage utility dollars in addition to transportation dollars to reconstruct the road more thoroughly so that we don't have to cut it up in a short duration the next year or few years. So that's the dig once concept.
And then by leveraging utility dollars, you're able to take monies from other resources from, let's say, the utilities or the water department to help with this particular project. Is that correct?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. One is that larger projects tend to be more efficient. We get more efficient contractors. They're more efficient to build. When they're more efficient to build, they tend to be lower costs. The contractor tends to bid us a lower price. That's better than doing a whole bunch of smaller projects. It's buy in bulk, right? That's sort of the concept there. The other item is using, again, those utility dollars. We can use utility dollars also as certain types of matching for certain types of federal funds. So we're actually able to use federal funds with utility as the match in certain cases to do transportation-related projects, which also is another benefit and allows us to stretch the dollars across more projects.
Okay, thank you. Finally, in one of the public comments, Mr. Nagel said that asphalt maintenance needs its own category. Do you see the general improvement district actually serving as that category? Or I just think that I've heard that several times that there's, we really need to, and I agree, prioritize our roads, and yet back to what was discussed earlier, what doesn't get funded. And so my feeling in terms of this general improvement district is that specific list of what is the objective and working to meet the objective under some very specific boundaries. And I see that as a way to create its own category, but perhaps am I mistaken on that? So
I think that's part of what the mayor's point was earlier in terms of, help us craft what the GID would be for. Yeah, I mean, in essence, the GID would be that quote unquote line item. That's certainly a possibility for roadway maintenance. Just speaking broadly, roadway maintenance or pavement maintenance, it could be a broad term. There's a lot of elements. There's pavement, there's signing and striping, there's traffic control, there's contractor mobilization, there's stormwater protection, there's design of all that, and you need all of that if you're going to do a reconstruction of only pavement. So that's why it's difficult to have just a single line item for pavement maintenance. But if you have a program for pavement maintenance, then you've got that accountability and you've covered all those ancillary costs that are associated with that.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Does any other member have a comment? Great.
Oh, yeah. I know our main focus today is GIDs, and they've done a lot of homework, and there's more to be done, but a couple other comments that I had, listening to the folks as well. Most of the folks here driving cars or pickups, but it's been noted that heavy trucks really do the pavement damage. right? And I don't know if it's in the mix yet. It's not really a GID item, I guess, but how you account for that amount of damage that those vehicles do. I mean, there's weight limits. Are those enforced? There's fees, and I think it's incumbent on us and supervisors and everybody said, okay, is everybody paying their fair share? So again, it's maybe not quite a GID item, but I think for the overall discussion, definitely. Second point, I don't think it came out today, but in some of the background material, not everybody has a car, and people do take the bus, and I think you, Catherine, you mentioned that there's discounts or reduced rates for those people if you can set up your program. So anything you want to add on at this point on that?
Yes, so there have been case studies where if, for example, there's a member of the household, or for example, an employer program where they're purchasing bus passes for the employees, or you have a home where they've purchased, and it could be a JAC pass, then you could have a program where you have a discount for that in the fee assessment, excuse me.
Okay, a couple other points. I don't know if you guys have this number yet. You kind of alluded to it, but what is the staff's capacity to handle additional projects, right? It sounded like if you go for 20 million, you got to staff up, you got to hire more consultants. So that means less money is actually going into the road. So do we have a sweet spot with current staff on what you could handle for additional funding?
I think that's part of the next steps, Commissioner Novak. We would need to look at and say, what is our current capacity level and what would it take to deliver $10 million of projects or $20 million of projects, and what would that look like? I don't think we have that answer today, and that was why we put it in the next steps.
Right. And then the last one, I think Catherine and the crew's done a good job. There are quite a few GIDs around here, but none of them quite match what we're doing today. So I don't know if there's any more feedback. I'm sure the public's going to have some ideas on, GIDs in Douglas County or up at Tahoe, but we're going to craft something for Carson that actually meets our needs. Okay, that's all I've got now.
Thank you. Mr. Dodson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think that it's important to understand better than we currently do before we really make some major decisions on which way to go here. Just about what the revenues that come in from a GID would give us. And, I know that information is coming, but again, I think it's imperative to understand, the revenue stream that we can generate for a specific purpose. And along those lines, I think it's important to understand with the GID, the assessment, the special assessment, how that pertains. And I'm looking like at the local roads maintenance funding. It seems from the definition that for that to be applied, if it's only for local roads, that certainly the properties that abound those local roads would get the most bang for the buck. But is there an expansion of the road system in more general terms to be able to pay for just the local road maintenance program? So, I think the public always needs to know just, what they're paying for, what they're getting for it, and be super transparent. I do believe that a GID gives the opportunity to do that better than some of the other funding mechanisms. So encourage continued evaluation of those points, if we could.
Ms. Maloney?
Thank you, Mayor Bagwell. This is really fantastic to have this many members of the public here. I think since I've been on this board, which is I think the shortest tenure of anyone here. This is far more than I think the maximum of 1 or 2 that's ever been at any RTC meeting that I've been at. So thank you for the time taken to be here. There was a public comment related to us commissioners here being elected, and I just wanted to clarify, only Mayor Bagwell and Supervisor Schutte are elected. Commissioner Novak and Commissioner Dobson and myself were appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And I bring that up to clarify because, as I understand, this commission has no authority to enact any tax. We are here to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. And so hearing these types of feedback is incredible, and it really matters in the recommendation that we'll ultimately make. So I just wanted to provide that point of clarification. The comment on the federal state exemptions, those apply not just to the property taxes and the comments made, but also to the gas tax. As I understand, they don't pay gas taxes either. And so I just wanted to note that I agree with the comment that when we're talking about funding our roads, that there are impacts from those vehicles and from those land uses that perhaps we should find a mechanism to account for, such that the burden isn't directly on our residents. I think that's really important. On the pavement management plan that Chris brought up, I did make a comment when we reviewed that a month or so ago about the failed roads. I'm not clear what the alternative to finding more funding is. What's the plan? If people can't pay, and I'll say I don't know if I can pay the amount that we're talking about paying, what does that look like? And so for me, it would be very helpful to have that discussion on, if the funds aren't increased, what happens? What's the alternative? I have heard, I've talked with my neighbors, and I've heard that maybe there are roads in Carson that we don't want pavement. Maybe there are roads that we want to put to gravel and grade once a year, and they're flat, and that's fine. We like rural Carson City. I've heard that. What would that look like? And maybe that's been explored in the past before I was on the board, but I think that would be helpful for me in understanding the alternatives being considered. And then just the last thing, there was a discussion on Nextdoor about eminent domain, and I did try to respond to the individual that made the comment that the GID would result in new eminent domain authority, and personally, I was really alarmed at that. So I was wondering if someone could speak to that as it relates to the GID.
Sure, I'll speak to that, and Catherine, if you want to chime in. A GID, the creation of a GID would have eminent domain ability upon a creation of a GID. However, Carson City has eminent domain ability today under NRS, as well as this board, the Regional Transportation Commission, has eminent domain authority today. So the GID, the creation of one, wouldn't create new eminent domain authorities that the city or the RTC already doesn't have.
Okay, that was helpful to hear, because when I heard that, I was immediately knee-jerking in terror. So thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Thank you for the presentation and all the work that went into this, and thank you again to the residents. It matters, and the more that you all can participate to help us form these recommendations, we're just citizens too. So thank you.
So Catherine, just for some more education on the creation of the GID, so the Board of Supervisors could be the GID board. Is that correct? We don't have to create another administrative board with more expenses, more staff, more. We could act in that capacity. Is that correct?
Yes,
just want to make sure.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. However, what you can do is you can appoint a board that makes the sort of more of the running decisions. So you could meet as the Board of Trustees. You only legally have to meet once a year. You might want to meet more often than that, but you can appoint a local, I think it was called a management board, that would make more of the the decisions sort of on a more regular basis. And so you could appoint, they could be persons from the RTC, from this board, could be other very specialized or people with a lot of knowledge in this area. But so that's what you can do. So yes, you're the board of trustees, but you can also appoint this local management board, so that it's not adding a lot more to the board's duties.
Well, and then my question becomes, can we, even as the Board of Trustees, then the management company, or even looking at that differently, could we not just, could we appoint the RTC as the day-to-day? Because the day-to-day is going to be which roads are we working on, all things that we currently do as an RTC. What I'm looking to understand is that I don't have to create something new. I'm trying to keep all of our administrative costs as teeny as possible, because you want every single dollar going into the repair of the roads. So RTC already meets monthly. That could be doing the work plan for the year, just like we do now. We would just have more dollars in a funding pot to say, okay, here's what we're going to do for the local roads, and here's what we're going to do for the arterials, and here's, so is that okay pursuant to this law? So the Board of Supervisors could delegate it to the RTC?
I have to go back and check the specifics on that. And I did have it in my original paper that I completed last year. I'm not sure it can actually be the RTC. Can I?
Get back to us. I'm just asking, these are the questions that I think we're all looking for. When I listen to again, some of the public comment is you don't want the dollars going anywhere except for fixing the road. And so I do not want to hire another staff person so that I can have another board when we all already do this every single day. It's within what we know how to do. Might take us 20 more minutes at an RTC meeting, but I don't have to recreate a whole nother structure. So let me know, or let all of us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Did anybody else? Go ahead, Lisa.
I just want to, so in the notes and in the report, or the last page of this, the community workshop comments summary, and just to reiterate those, there's a desire for accountability, that the monies collected are dedicated solely to local road maintenance and not commingled with the city's general fund or used on other roadway types or features. And I think it's safe to say that we all agree. That's what this is about. It's, as members of this community, and outside of me being on RTC or on the board, I'm also a Carson kid, and I'm also just a local person who cares deeply about our community and wants a lovely community and wants to do the right thing. So I appreciated that being in here, because it really does speak to this conversation and to the difficulty of this decision and or of this process, and figuring out how do we have the roads that our community deserves.
And I think it's really, I think that's a good question, right? And that's why I even asked earlier, is it the $21 million gap? Do we need to hit the whole mark? Is the 56% for the PCI where we want to be? I think that's up to you as the public to help determine what is it that you think our roads should be. Maybe the answer is 40%, or maybe the answer is you're looking at a map and saying, you know what, Mayor, these 27 roads could be gravel. Let's cut them out of the PCI. Let's cut them out of the mix. I don't know all those answers, but I know that people are telling me they want their roads fixed. I know that the current amount of money that we have access to will not accomplish that. That I know. But you have to decide what level do you want me to push for roads? Help me, tell me. I want you to do everything you can, Mayor. Cut every penny of every funding of anything else you have. Close the parks, close the library. I don't care what you have to do. I want roads. Then you might tell us that. We're going to do a ballot measure, right? That says, do you want to increase the sales tax? You, the public, will have the chance to tell us your answer. And I think that's appropriate. I don't mind ballot measures at all, because it's you that gets to decide whether or not that's important enough for you to pay more money. So I look forward to the ballot measure stuff. Do you know when will that be coming to us for the crafting of that? So that we can, I know those have to come sooner than people think. We do not write them, even though that's next November. I know that Scott's looking over there like, oh no, a ballot measure. I know that comes way in advance too, that you have to have the questions and things. So I just really want as much public information and transparency in advance as we can
I will
do with
go
that.
off going off the last time we did a ballot measure for the diesel tax. It was, I believe it was March or April.
Yeah,
So it's,
right.
it's early
A
in the
lot
calendar year.
earlier than people think.
Yeah, I've already asked the state what our deadlines are. So.
Okay. So we will be asking the public for their input and decisions on that funding. It's up to you all to go to the ballot and vote yes or no. Okay, does anybody else up here have anything? Okay, then I'm gonna go backwards on the item. We had two that said they wanted to do it after the part. So first is Paula Peters. Good evening.
Hello, Paula
Yep,
Peters.
Yep, keep it green. Thank you.
Okay. COVID impacted a lot of people financially. The raging inflation has impacted everyone. Many Americans are struggling to make ends meet. Many are using their credit cards for everyday purchases and unable to pay off their bills. In 2021, our Nevada legislature voted for an energy bill. That bill included a program to build EV charging stations and purchasing electric buses. This program is forecasted to cost about $100 million. It will be funded solely by Nevada energy ratepayers. So all the homeowners out there are going to have a big increase coming down the line. Many Carson City property owners are struggling financially. I think everyone in this room wants Carson City roads to be safe and maintained in good condition. However, in view of all the rising costs, many of us can't afford for our property taxes to increase for fund improvements. Therefore, I do not support creating a GID. I also think that a GID cannot, the fact that it can be created without having voters vote for it is just wrong. So why should property owners be the only ones paying for road maintenance? Sales taxes are paid by residents and tourists, anyone who purchases products and services in our city. I would be in favor of a limited increase in sales tax, not enough to generate $21 million, but a step in the right direction. We need to tax EV owners. Currently, they contribute nothing to our local road maintenance or the Nevada Highway Fund. The V&T Railroad, a private entity, has received a lot of government contributions over the years. I'm not sure exactly how much in the early years, but over $300,000 annually the last few years. I don't know how those government contributions were structured. Were they a gift, or will V&T Railroad, a private enterprise, repay us? That would provide the city with additional funding for road maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I had John Vitale.
My name is John Vitale. I live in Carson City, and I just really had a couple of questions. I think the first one's been answered. I had a question: what would be the GID's administrative cost? If I understand the conversation that went on here, it would be non-existent.
Trying to make it that way.
Practically,
We'll
just
see.
about, very small. My second question is The issue of a GID, basically a GID is necessary in order to have a special assessment on the tax roll. Is that what it's all about? That's the
Doesn't have
only-
to be on the tax roll.
Well,
We gave you other options, but
Well-
it's the
Well,
method.
in other
Yes.
words, to assess property owners, you need a GID. Is that correct?
If I want to put it on a property tax.
Yes, if you want.
Not a
to-
utility bill. We
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
options.
right.
Yes.
Okay, that was my other
Yes.
question. My third question is, when would this additional assessment end?
Never,
Yeah, you're gonna-
never. I want to, right? Let me just be on, never.
In other words, what you're saying is we're going to have, require that the property owners pay a tax to bring the roads up to standard, and then an additional amount to maintain them, and that's all in this assessment. Is that correct?
Keep asking me your other questions so you don't run out of your 3
Well,
minutes. Is that your last one?
That's basically
Okay.
my last one.
I just want to make sure I'm not jumping
Yeah,
into your
yeah.
time.
No,
No, the assessment will be forever, right? Because it's $21 million a year. So let me be clear about something else. I look at a map, all of us do this every single time as RTC. We get those indexes. Right now, your road work is done, for 5 districts, 5 transportation districts, and we rotate each year to the next district and the next district. And we look at the PCI, and we look at all these issues, whether or not it needs a full rebuild or does it need this. And so then we select the roads that need to get worked on that year. That's never going to stop. And so you try to bring that road up to a certain level, but then there's the road right next to it that needs to be done. So the 21 million is to maintain the index. Right now, you've estimated it at PCI 56, which doesn't mean a lot to you, but that's the condition that this RTC board has adopted as where we want the roads to be.
well, it's my understanding we have some roads that are approaching the standpoint where if we don't do something really quick, we're going to have to tear them up and do it from a gravel base on up.
That's exactly
right?
right. That's exactly right.
Does your 21, the amount of money you're talking about assessing and collecting right now taking care of those roads that really need it today and prevent that from happening? Is that that amount of money? Will that prevent the roads from
You can
failing?
answer that. And that would be end of your public comment, but he can answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so as a general response to that, the assessment of the $21 million accounts for all types of roads in all conditions across Carson City. So if that road needs a crack sealing next year, that $21 million includes that crack sealing. If that road needs a full reconstruction from the ground up, then next year, then that $21 million includes
So that will
road.
cover it all.
The $21 million is to cover everything
you.
annually, yes.
Thank you so much. I did not have anyone else signed up, but Mr. Horn, come on up. And if you would like to just come up and take another chair, you can. Mhm.
I think the best answer from what I've heard, and I have listened very hard to what you're saying, and you've made some very good comments, and I appreciate that. I think that forming a district would be bad. I think the easiest, the fairest is, and the method that would get the most money for the roads would be a sales tax. It also, we're going to have inflation, and as a percentage, the sales tax will, as we have inflation, will give us a much stabler thing. Then you don't have to worry about who controls the thing. I think you're doing fine job-wise if you keep what you've got and apply that sales tax to roads that you need done, and you apply it in the proper method rather than having a district and then having to figure out who to assess and how to assess and the rest of this. Everybody buys food, they're going to pay into
Not on
the
food,
tax.
but go ahead. No sales tax on food. Go
Or
ahead.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it depends, okay.
Right.
whatever's, that's my point.
Fast food restaurant, yes.
My point is that everybody uses things, and a sales tax would affect everybody. And people have, whether they're using bicycles or electric cars or regular cars or whatever, it simplifies everything, and that makes more money go in. Doesn't require special consultants. It doesn't require another agency. It just takes care of the problem.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Please remember to identify yourself for the record again. Thank you.
I do learn. First of all, I do think the.
You have to do your name.
My
Sorry.
name is Rose Kruger, I'm sorry. And I'm a resident. GID, I think, is a mistake. It's just too open, too slippery, slidey, too much to do. I like his sales tax. I also think it's fair to put an EV road tax in place because they don't contribute via the gas tax. I think there's a lot of fair ways we can bring it to the people that are increasing the problem. I also think if we look at things where we've been talking sewers and road resurfacing, joint funding, I don't know if that's a possibility. But when they did the road that leads to my loop, they refused to, they were there with all the equipment and the people and the laydown, and it wasn't really all that much more work to finish the road. All they did was that one little strip over the sewer, and it would have cost far less than each project separately. If people had just talked to each other, joint funded it, had all the people in place, had the laydown, had the asphalt, had everything, and just done that whole stretch of road. They're going to have to do that road. I broke an axle 2 years ago on it. Okay, well, cracked it, same diff. But my point is there's ways to use the money we have more intelligently. And I say joint funding would be a place to find quite a bit of those millions. My big concern is the GID has no cap. It has no end. And sooner or later, this money, not you guys, okay? You're the ones that set it up. Somewhere down the road, somebody says, well, look, we don't have to put any more money out of here into here because we can put it under it's covered under the GID. Happened with all the places that did lottery to fund schools. So they stopped funding schools out of the general fund. You see what I'm saying? It's a slippery slope. And without something that ends and needs to be reestablished, periodically looked at, line item approved, everything, then we're going to get into that slippery slope that actually costs people their houses in other states and places using this type in its variations of the vehicle.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you.
Harry Butts.
Harry?
A couple questions. One, if you go with GID and you're going to use it on the, assess it through the utility bills, you better not use it as a percentage of the utility bill. It would be a set amount.
Correct.
The second thing is, I believe that all vacant properties should be charged, just like anybody else, because that road causes their property value to be higher, and people are going to use that road regardless. Just because they haven't built on it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be taxed.
Okay.
And the third thing is, if we're going to repair roads, do we have some way of making sure that the specifications are set properly so that the roads don't deteriorate as fast? I mean, if you don't have good quality specifications for your contractor, then you're going to get garbage, and the garbage will deteriorate quicker, and we'll have to spend more money again to redo it. And the fourth thing is, I forgot.
It's okay. No, I appreciate, again, that you're contributing to the questions. Right.
Yeah, it's just, like, I mean, there's a piece of, for a good example right now, there's a piece of Lompa that is between Edmonds and Fairview, and the piece right next to Edmonds is just shy of being gravel. It's totally broken up. And not too long ago, they put a slurry seal on it. That was stupid. That was a waste of money because it was broken to begin with, the pavement underneath. And so to put a slurry seal on top of it was just simply a waste of funds. So somebody needs to pay attention to that type of work as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? It's okay.
Anyway, I'm signed up to sign for $20 a month. I'm willing to do that. Our roads are atrocious. One of the questions I have is, we're already paying for labor for staff. So if we do the GID, is all that money going to the construction or the asphalt and not to labor?
Keep asking me all your questions and we'll come back and answer because you're going to run out of time. I want to be fair to you.
And I think somebody here, I don't remember which one, for the heavy trucks is an issue out by the airport. Arrowhead is terrible, but you gotta include buses and school buses because they weigh a lot. Are you gonna assess bicycle? We're making bicycle paths. I know they don't weigh anything still. That's an issue. When I was working, we were very concerned when 65% of the labor, or 65% of our budget went into labor. And when you get up above that, you can't do anything. I mean, you're starting to, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. So I think multifamily housing, the board of supervisors continues to approve those, and that just adds more and more cars to our roads. So I don't know how you're gonna assess that other than a GID or a sales tax, something. It's gotta be solved, because it's getting terrible. And the last thing, this is just a pet peeve. When they dig roads up for construction, and they dig this little trennnel, it just, and it deteriorates. I mean, I'm thinking of the sheriff's office. You go by that on Route Street, there's, where they dug up that thing to put in sewer plants, or, I'm sorry, sewer lines.
Right.
It's just, it's terrible. So I'm done. Sorry.
Perfect.
I'm venting.
No, that's the place you get to do it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So then just to answer him, the staffing component to handle contracting or small administrative work, I think they mentioned they would be looking at what would be necessary to issue 20 million, 21 million more in projects. So that will come back in a report to us. I'm going to imagine they're going to say there's a couple that will be needed to handle the contracting components. There is administrative work. I'm sorry, that just comes with anything that we do, but anyone that owns a business or does anything, the objective is to do, though, what we talked about and keep that as absolutely small as possible. You asked the question on heavy trucks, buses. One of the methodologies that was discussed is to whether we were going to use vehicle trips or things of that, and we get to set rates based on things. So a decision, and you can all help us craft these things, is should commercial types of businesses that have heavy truck traffic to their businesses, they have a lot of incoming trucks and a lot of outgoing trucks, should that be set at a rate, things like that? Those are all questions that'll have to be answered when we establish it. The bicycle paths, I don't think we're considering putting the paths in the GID, so we're not going to fix the bicycle paths with the GID money. So I don't think, I don't see that currently in the pathing. Multifamily housing would be charged within this process. And then repair work is just a general question. And I kind of agree, right? When you see a patch because we did a repair, that road's not going to be in good shape, which I think alludes to what this board works extremely hard at, and somebody else mentioned joint funding. I think that's why we try really hard to do our utility work and our road work together. Can we always do that? No, but I think you're all correct in wanting us to do that, right? You don't want to cut into a road to fix a pipe because the patch is going to be awful and the road's going to be not far behind it. So can we always do it? No, but I think this entire board and all of our staff are very cognizant of that idea. So thank you, and just keep on giving us thoughts. Yeah, it has to be at a microphone, and I know where you're going. Thank you so much. Next, we're coming down here, and then, okay, go ahead.
My name is Anna Winston. I'm a property owner, and I'm against the GI bill, or I don't know what you
GID?
call it.
Okay.
Yes, but if it should happen, I think it was the second thing on the television there, the money would be done for transportation, road maintenance, they would specify boundaries. But what really concerned me, the word creativity. What does that mean? That opens the door to spending money on creativity? I don't.
Okay.
That opens the door to spending money on whatever they feel creating.
Okay. All right.
So what's the answer to that?
So we're not doing creativity. I don't think that's, we're not doing that, but Catherine,
It was
what,
there.
I got it, but we're not doing creativity. But I think in the context of this, would you like to answer that, Catherine? Thank you.
Yes, I would very
Yeah.
much. Yes, creativity really meant designing that assessment structure, what methodology to use, and that you could create something that is designed with the input of the public that makes the most sense for Carson City. So you don't have to be boxed into a certain methodology that one other city used. We can be creative, and that we can create some assessment structure that really works for Carson City.
Within transportation and streets and all that.
Yeah, what we want it to be. She's meaning that.
Within that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, you answered
Nope.
my question.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Stuart Kimball.
Hi,
Yeah,
Stuart.
when I made it to this meeting, I think all you guys are doing fantastic. I think you're open-minded. I think you have families here. I think you have the same concern that we have. I think raising the sales tax might be a big mistake because inflation mainly. For example, I'm just using this for examples. If you go to the Cracker Box, by the time you get a cup of coffee, you get your breakfast, and you tip the waitress, you know, it's going to cost you, in the sales tax, it's going to cost you almost $30 by the time you get out of there. That's one person. So if you start putting small businesses out of business, you're going to have less money coming in. So sometimes raising the sales tax may not be the answer. Now, I did pay attention to what you said. I think a lot of our money comes from the gas tax. Again, what people have to realize, I work for Q&D. I worked as a meat cutter first. I only lost 2 fingers, but I got them sold back on. Don't worry about it. They broke the unions. I went into transportation. I had my own business. And what people don't realize, when you hire someone to come fix your roads, say Q&D, they're very large. They have to use the roads to get here. So your bids are going to be higher, and that's going to be passed on to everyone here. And then you also got to worry about the people on fixed income, especially people that are under $3,000 a month. They own their house, but a little bit can kind of push them farther down a rabbit hole that they shouldn't be going down. Utilities, we all face it. We all know it's true. Bad policies, especially bad energy policies. We're all paying higher energy costs. Matter of fact, I didn't think I was going to be chopping wood at 64. In 2 months, I'm going to be 64. I got to adjust our way of living because 70% of our power is produced by natural gas in Nevada. So if you use a lot of electricity or you heat your house with electricity, your bill probably went up by more than 50%. Water and sewer is kind of high. I have a little garden, so I like to do it with my granddaughter. I do not save money by growing vegetables because the water bill went up so much. I'm probably paying $3, $4 a pound to grow a piece of zucchini, okay? So we got to be careful how we target things. One thing I do know, I was a broker too, believe it or not. I built a lot of homes. I put a lot of families into homes. Unfortunately, I can't do that anymore because 2007, 2008, they pulled all my financing. The bank took everything away. But when I had to sell some of my property, I had a house on 5th Street. I was getting $850 a month. And I think I sold it around 2003, 2004. I wouldn't doubt if they're getting maybe 1,600 to 2,200. And what caused the crisis, I'm gonna tell you what caused the crisis. It was, part of it was the banks, a bigger part are the billionaires, Warren Buffett.
Sorry,
Oh, gosh.
your time's up.
But what, we gotta
Thank
look
you.
at windfall taxes. People that have rentals, you can't tell me they're not making more money. If they're charged, if I charge $850 and they're charging $2,000, those things are maybe casinos that have windfalls, maybe you could tax them a little bit more. Anything like rentals, like they said.
Thank you.
Big apartments that are owned by BlackRock and stuff like that.
Thank
They're
you.
3-story high, they can pay more taxes.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart, very much.
Hope I made my point.
You did. Thank you so very much. He was actually next, so go ahead and then I'll come to you. And if there's anybody else, again, come on up into the seats so we can move through this. Go ahead.
Glenn Conant, I agree that sales tax is the only fair tax everybody pays. The other one I wanted to bring up is you talked about possibly billing people through utility bills and that. That might also be a good avenue for notifications. You send it out with a utility bill for the notifications or surveys or whatever. The last one, and I know I mentioned this, and I know you, Mayor, you asked Christopher to look into it, but I would like all of you to take time and read NRS 372. I don't know the subcode. It's on SGST, and it is actually for this very purpose. You are taxed a supplemental governmental services tax based off the value of your vehicle. So if you can afford a more expensive vehicle, you're going to pay a little more, et cetera. And it allows the counties to implement this. And it's for the exact purpose of fixing roads, sidewalks, et cetera. So I would just like to, emphasize again, if we have something in place, why are we looking at stuff like a GID,
Yeah.
which, I don't quite agree with. But, so,
Thank you.
yeah, and electric cars are also included on that. So there you go. All righty.
Thank you. And again, we're going to look that up. I know we had it originally, and I'm going to guess the amount of money was small off the top of my head, but we'll look it up. We'll look it up. Go ahead.
My name is Cody Sheldon. I've been a lifetime Carson City resident. I don't have enough knowledge on the subject to say whether I support a GID or not, but as a younger citizen, as someone that lives in Carson City, I would be willing to pay towards getting our roads fixed. I'm only 31. I don't want in 10, 20, 30 years to be driving on gravel roads. The one thing that I think should be considered is not only funding it now, but funding in the future. With the electric vehicles, there's going to be just more and more of them on the road. They're 2 to 3 times heavier than gas-powered vehicles. And the torque of these cars, they're going to tear up the roads much more than gas vehicles do, meaning we're just going to need more maintenance and more repairs as time goes forward. And I just...
Because the batteries are so heavy.
Yeah.
Right.
And-
Thank you, Cody. Thank you. Mr. French?
Thank you very much, Mayor, or Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I just want to start with a real basic. Had trouble finding this agenda, dealing with this agenda as it said on site, and on the computer. I don't know if anyone else did. You had to scroll down through statement, go back through another meeting, and then come up to the added material. So if you wanted to get not only the basics of the agenda, but the supporting material was a bit of a trek. So I'd like to just have that reviewed and considered. We keep growing, but we're not able to maintain what we have. And I don't know if a moratorium is too extensive in the sense of extreme. And I've had the same problem before. It's embarrassing. We've got to start looking at different materials as well for asphalts. There are many different companies and corporations and scientists working on that now. They want more flexibility, less dry out, crumble and such. And I would like to encourage us not to asphalt our paths and our pathways and our trails. And that's above and beyond because, to me, that's because of the gas and the other heat that it adds and such. But I'm sorry, I got a little distracted there. Can I have a minute back?
Till it rings.
Right. The electric car has been brought up, and I think that's very important for us to consider as an opportunity to get more funds towards things. I'm great on the fact that we have this opportunity. I am so pleased for tonight. You know how often I've sat here as the one person maybe that has a comment at a deal, regardless of how you think of it or what position you may take on what I've said, or even if you want to hear what I've said. This is awesome, and I want to see more people helping contribute to the suggestiveness of conversation, discussion, review. I've learned so much from the people around me, one sitting next to me right now, and from every one of you tonight. Informed me in ways that are appreciated and will help with my comments in the future. It's in the right direction. I appreciate it very much. I have a lot of concerns, and I think people that have better stead of and more time than me will relate. But thank you all for coming. My gosh, what a feeling. I like it when I have to get crowded out into the side walls. And so, and for the contributions you've all made on personal levels about your experiences and your positions, thank you.
Thank you, Denny. Betsy.
Betsy Strasburg. First of all, I also had trouble finding it because you had to scroll down. I usually see a link in the Board of Supervisors. So I was trying to press on the link to find the supporting documentation, but it was down on page 11 that I finally found it, thanks to Chris over there, who told me how to get to it. The one thing that I would like to show is this is from a prior presentation. It's on the website. It says current funding sources, and it shows all roads on the left that has the 5 cents, the 5.35 gas tax, 1 cent gas tax, 5 cents diesel tax. But I have not been able to find, and I think this question came up, the line item detail of how these gas tax were applied to local roads. We know that it applies to arterial roads and collector roads, but local roads, and I think Chris said that it's hard to do that unless you dig into a lot of project level, line item level. But if we can't break it out, then I don't think we should have GIDs, because this is the only way that the citizens will be comfortable that the money is going where it's supposed to be going. The second thing is, if we have a shortage of funds to repair our roads, then we should reconsider our decision to increase our inventory. Because I think I heard from one of the other supervisors who's not here that there was only one development that had the internal roads of the development not part of the city inventory of roads. So let's revisit and not increase our inventory until we figure out a solution, because not add to the problem. The third thing is, somebody else said in this presentation, one of the public, that the contractors come and fix something and then they have to come and fix it again, etc. The city should consider a requirement to have a performance bond for all its contractors, so that if there is a problem with the road after it's fixed the first time or the second time, that performance bond comes into effect, and so they have to fix it for free and it's not on the city's dime. So that's all I could come up with, because I didn't get a chance to review in detail. I will be submitting some comments afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the ability to identify dollars attached to a local road, if a GID is implemented, or even in the future, that can easily be handled with a project number. So are we able to do that? Yes. Do we have the accounting mechanism to do it? Yes. Have we currently? No, because we've been pretty honest with everyone that we really don't do a lot of work on local roads because we don't have the money. We're doing them on the arterials. Doesn't mean occasionally a small fix on a local road gets done, but we certainly have the accounting stream that we can code work if necessary to show what was done on a local road. The increase on the inventory was, oh shoot, it's in my car actually. The number of road miles that we have increased over the 10 years for the inventory. Do you remember? But if not, we'll get that to you because it's very minor when you look at
I
the.
don't know the 10 years. I know over the last year, it's about 1.3 miles.
Yeah, 1 mile. So I don't want people to think we're adding 20 miles of road every year or something because we're not doing that. But it's not, it's a good comment, right? It's something to take into consideration. And I believe we do performance bonds on all of our contracts.
That is correct, we do.
Yeah, so we are doing that. So again, it's a good idea and the city is doing performance bonds. So I want to answer that one. And you're next.
My name's Donna McLaren, and my question is, with all the new building and all the new property taxes, and I don't know if there's builder's taxes included, is some of this included in the road reconstruction?
So depending on a project, when it gets approved, a developer may have to put in a light, may have to put in an intersection, has to do all their own internal roads, and then whatever a transportation study might produce to say they also have to participate on the intersection, right? So lots of things go into those activities when a developer comes in. There was, so.
Okay. My other
Yes.
question is, that's a tremendous amount of new property taxes coming into the city. And maybe some of that should be accounted for coming into the road system.
Okay, thank you,
Repair.
Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Shelley Shannon, Carson City resident. I did attend the workshop, and it was more of a display that led to the ultimate ending of the GID. There wasn't any other funding suggestions presented. So tonight, I'm very thankful that it's actually much more satisfying. And I appreciate your comments too. It's very nice to know. I'm completely opposed to the GID. And I do want to make sure too, if you do a ballot question, that it's not something that's going to be insurmountable, that people will automatically say no, like a 10% increase. Something that's feasible, that I think we all are in agreement that we need something. But whether it's, I think, more of a sales tax or something, some kind of equitable tax is much more preferred than singling out property owners. And that's it. And again, I thank you all for tonight.
Thank you, Shelley. Karen? And if there's anyone else, again, fill in the seats. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Karen Stevens for the record. And I did attend the workshops, and it did seem like there was a focus on pushing the GID. And I just want to say I'm fully against it. I don't think we need more government. We have too much government as it is. That's why we're in the fix we're in now with inflation and wars and all the other terrible things going on. And the other thing that I'm against is for 10 people or however many people it is making the decision to implement GID. I think that should be up to the people on a ballot issue rather than having somebody else implement it and then over half the people have to say we don't want it. I just don't think that's very democratic at all. So I'm against it, and I appreciate all the comments that have been made before. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, I don't see anyone else up here, so with that, I'm going to close item 5A for this evening, and we'll move on to the agenda. And I just also, again, I can't thank you all enough, right? We can't just really thank you. And if you have more comments that you didn't get in tonight, write them in to us. Give us your ideas and things. Oh, where?
Where can we send our questions?
Yes, we are going to take a break. Chris, would you give them an email where you would like public comment to come to you on the item? Please, where would you like them to email your comments?
You can provide comments through the website at preservecarsoncityroads.com. There's a place where you can sign up to receive updates as well as provide comments. That's the best source. That way we make sure we get them and they get addressed.
I'll try to get it together.
If that doesn't work, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you some other information.
I have a lot of questions.
Thank you. Okay, what we're going to do is take a 10-minute recess so we can set up for the next agenda item and we can use the facility. Sorry. Okay, all right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. We're now on to agenda item 5B, discussion and possible action regarding an amendment to cooperative agreement. Oh, my glasses are not on. PR 585-21-063 between Carson City Regional Transportation Commission and DOT. Lisa, may I have your disclosure, please?
Yes, you may. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Considering we've had such a long evening, I kind of want to start this one off a little bit different since it's just an amendment to an agreement that we're all already familiar with. Do any of you have a specific question that you would like Mr. Martinovich to discuss? No? Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward and normal, or do you have something, Greg?
Yeah, I think I saw it in the report later on, but it ties to this project, that it sounded like there was an issue with the DMV path and state lands. So it's probably not directly with this agenda
Agreement.
item, but it is related to it. So I don't know if there's anything.
I can address that in that item, Commissioner Novak. Madam Chair, if I may just make one comment. There was discussion at the previous item related to the use and the pathways. This project is a federally funded project through a combination of funds. One is Transportation Alternative Program funds, and one is now Carbon Reduction funds. Those two funds are only eligible for certain types of multi-use path or similar types of non-roadway infrastructure. These federal funds could not be used to reconstruct, repair, or maintain any vehicular road in Carson City. And I think it's important to note that.
Yes,
So
I do.
these are federal funds for this type of purpose.
I think that's probably the most difficult part for the public, is to understand that much of our funding across all our systems, not just road money, is so targeted to specific things. And so it's hard when they say, oh, your general fund's 100 million, can't you find 21 million? No. Even inside the general fund, a thing like paying a parking ticket is a direct charge somewhere, and it has to be spent where it has to be spent. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up tonight, because I constantly do get that question. Why are you why are you doing a trail? Why are you doing a pathway? Well, that's the only thing I can spend the money on. If I could put it on a road, I probably would, but we can't, so.
But I think,
Mhm.
part of a conversation that isn't directly related to funding, but the benefits of alternative forms of transportation and how it reduces costs in other ways. Thinking about even the discussion of electric vehicles and how electric vehicles and the weight impacts the roads. And absolutely, there is use and damage to the roads, but it also impacts air quality. And the benefit of cleaner air has a different, there's a different cost associated with that. And while we aren't in the position of discussing all of that all the time, I think every now and then it's important to acknowledge that the give and take of these efforts to for the connectivity and for our maintenance and our
All of it.
yeah, all of it.
All of it. So nobody else, any questions on this? Is there any public comment on this item? We're back to normal? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair, and panel. Yeah, I would call you a panel tonight because that's how this was dealt with. We were spoken with and to and appreciated. Okay, to keep this short as much as I can, I've already mentioned that there was a bit of an issue trying to get through the material because of the way it was set up, and so I'm a little off foot here. My thing also, Supervisor Schutte, is that I don't care where the money comes from in some ways. Of course, I don't want it to come out of my pocket if it's towards something I don't agree with. But for the asphalting of any trails or paths, unless you can't find another way to get people over a hard-packed piece of property and have them have some responsibility of getting the right equipment. You're not going to want them to get out there on a Swin racing bike into sand or something that they can't handle. So they're going to have to do some adjusting. But to make places available and such. My problem is asphalt is going to be hot. It's disrupting the natural environment in so many different ways. It gives off fumes for the whole life of it, literally. And to pick it up and to remove it and to replace it, it takes energy, it takes time, it pollutes and pollutes and pollutes. There's nothing that doesn't pollute about it. And the fact that it makes it a little comfortable for us when we're in our vehicles with our nice tires and our shock absorbers, that's great. And we want to make sure that people don't get hurt when they're crossing the street because there's so many cracks that I have to maneuver. I had trouble maneuvering a walker through some of the areas. So I know that things need to be done. And as having worked for a city in California that lives in an area where the asphalt often got beat up from other reasons than cold and hot and stuff, we have to look at other materials. There are asphalts out there that are much more flexible. They're less polluting in their whole lifetime, less than what we have out in our standard oil-based issues right now. They have glues and different compounds that are less. So I would love us to consider those things. So I'm not against some federal people wanting to pay us for something, but we often should not take advantage of it because some areas shouldn't be asphalted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? On 5B? No. You want final public comment? Different, okay. Okay, I'll bring it back up here for a motion.
I move to approve the amendment as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to sign the amendment and future amendments regarding extensions of time and changes in funding not exceeding 10% of the present amount.
Second.
On discussion, because again, I like to answer public comment whenever possible. This particular item is an amendment to a contract and an agreement that we have already exercised. And so I'm going to vote in favor of it. I am not opposed to your public comment to look at future decisions on whether or not a trail or a pathway should be done in asphalt. So I think it's important that you recognize, again, we do listen and hear, but this already has a contract and it's already an agreement that's in place. So it's not impossible to change, but generally improbable to change. So I just wanted to let you know that I did hear what you had to say, and I think that it's never wrong to look at the why, you know, and should we do it or shouldn't we do it? So I just wanted you to know it wasn't on deaf ears, but for this particular item, since it's an amendment that's bringing in a funding source, which is not Carson City's road monies. Again, I agree with you, and I already put earlier on the record that I'm in favor of using the federal's dollars instead of our dollars whenever I can.
Well, and it also addresses maintenance needs.
Yeah.
And so we already have
7
these
months of it,
trails,
yes.
and so in many areas, and so this is a way to keep them in good working order. They're already there.
Right, existing ones. So with that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item number 6, which is our non-action items. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm bringing up a couple of slides because I want to talk a little bit about a couple of items that were mentioned at the last RTC meeting. The first item here is in relation, and I don't know, I apologize, the cords are being very odd, is in relation to annual ridership for Jump Around Carson. And this, I'll get these items up first thing in the morning to the website. So this is updated, looking the last 10 or 11 years of ridership for Jump Around Carson. We have seen an increase from 2022 to 2023 for a total ridership of 159,706 rides. I want to note that it was discussed that we talked about why isn't it increasing? Well, I talked to our neighboring transit agencies about their trends and what they're seeing. This is transit ridership for RTC Southern Nevada for the last few years. And you can see following COVID, again, it dropped down. And excuse me, it is also not increasing similar to our trends. Wow. When we look at Washoe RTC's transit service, you can see again, COVID, it's fallen down there. The red is their paratransit, the blue is their fixed route. And so it's relatively flat after that. And then lastly is TRPAs to transit agencies, both TTD and TART are shown there. And you can see those blue and orange projection lines showing the general overall decrease in transit ridership. So I bring this point up just to show that we're not isolated in what we're seeing in our ridership trends. It's a statewide and a national trend in terms of transit ridership. So that.
Do you think that COVID caused that? So they found alternative means and they're just not going to come back to the bus system?
I think there's a couple of things going on. I think one, it could be COVID. They've found some other means. Another is a concern about safety and security in public transit and transportation in general, whether that's subway, air travel, transit services, rail. I think there's a lot of that's a trend, and we're seeing that nationwide. And I know the FTA is actively working on that. In fact, today, I believe Kelly cited in a webinar about trying to make multimodal transportation, things like transit and rail, more inviting again. How do we re-educate folks? So just wanted to share that information.
Thank you.
The other information I wanted to share was in relationship to a comment that Commissioner Maloney made about failed roads. We pulled the data. This is our current list of failed roads in Carson City. We have 3.78 miles that are classified as failed, meaning they have a pavement condition index of less than 10. Asphalt Drive from Sheep Drive to Highway 50, Bighorn Drive, Marion Drive, Northgate Lane. There's a few segments of Northgate Lane. Oak Street down by Snyder and Roland. Rabe Way down the south end, south of Schultz Ranch. Rifle Range Road out to the Rifle Range. Nichols Lane between Airport or by Airport Road between Carmine and US 50. Spooner Drive there near Mark Twain. And Timberline. This is the very end of Timberline Drive just before it turns into dirt. So just as a picture of what failed roads look like, here's one on one of those segments of Northgate Lane and a segment on Asphalt Drive. And so to your point, Commissioner Maloney, about what do we do about these, I think it's important to start having that conversation. And we have had some conversations internally as staff about what does it mean, because I think it's important to note that a dirt road doesn't mean no cost. A dirt road means a different cost. And understanding what that is annually and what is the yearly maintenance of a dirt road, what is that going to take? And so understanding those costs as compared to asphalt is a good task for us to look at. So I just wanted to bring that up.
How many houses are on Asphalt Drive?
There are no houses on Asphalt Drive.
None?
No houses. There's a couple of businesses.
Ooh. Where's Asphalt?
Asphalt Drive is east of Deer Run Road. Sort of there's a power generation station. It's sort of near Capitol Glass up there, if you're familiar with that area. It's in that area of town.
Okay.
So there are no houses on that particular road.
Okay.
There are a number of other roads that have PCIs of 11 and 12. Desatoya is in that case. Gordonia in that same area of Empire Elementary is in that case. So there's a number of roads that are very close to being failed that are more heavily used and have a number of houses. So
right.
Bring that up for.
I think those might be important important slides in your workshop that's coming up. I think showing the story of what does PCI mean and what does a failed road look like.
And we do that.
I think we're all familiar here when we say, oh my gosh, we're only going to go for a 56 PCI. I'm not so sure the public's like, well, why aren't we going for a 90 PCI out of 100? I'm like, oh, we're never going to get there. That cost would be 50 million or 100 million. But I think that that last slide you had and then these pictures are wonderful.
Yeah, we try to include that. We had it at the last meeting, a whole board about this is what PCI X looks like. This is what PCI X looks like. Here's the map. What does your road look like? Mm-hmm. And so we do provide that at our public workshops to provide that background. So.
Kind of tying into that, some of these roads that you're showing were probably never built to current standards.
Yeah,
and I think it has come up, all these new developer roads, you are making sure that there's a full pavement section in, and some of these way back when were never built that way.
To begin with.
So
they never were going to be a 30-year road.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A 30-year road, but they're lasting 60 years too. So.
Right.
I think that's a really.
Roads go back to Ormsby County. They were constructed as part of Ormsby County, which 1963, I believe. So.
I think that's a really good comment, though. And so in discussion and in public forums to speak to that, and also what you said about dirt roads also have a cost and a consequence. So that's a good discussion.
That's a great slide.
Okay, well, that was my slideshow there
Okay.
for tonight. I also wanted to mention real quick, on November 19th, it's the World Day of Remembrance for Roadway Fatality Victims. So I just wanted to note that we see fatalities and injuries, serious injuries on our roads periodically, and so that there's a day across the world where we remember those who are lost on our roads. November 19th is that. On a staffing note, the City Department, Public Works, has lost 2 people who are critical in our process for what we do. One of our signal technicians has resigned. He was one of our folks that goes out and does a lot of our signal maintenance, making sure they operate, fixing timings, things like that. And then one of our project managers also resigned, who does a lot of our roadway project management activities. And so definitely sorry to lose them. They are going to other agencies for a variety of
People
reasons.
keep stealing our good employees.
Yep.
So, huh,
And both of,
knock it off.
yeah, both of them are choosing to commute. So that's unfortunate as well. Winter preparations, next month, we'll have a couple of items. One item would be on winter preparations and public works activities that we do in the winter, snow plowing, street, sidewalk, things like that. So look for that item next month. I'm also thinking about bringing an item, and I don't know if it's gonna be next month or the month after, related to some updates on some ongoing projects. I know we have our project status report, and I'll go over that briefly, but there's some other items I want to bring up and discuss at the board level on a few projects to get some input and direction on those, and so look for that in the next couple of months.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
That's my report. Thank you.
6B, street operations.
I don't have anything I was going to highlight, so happy to answer questions.
Yeah, is there anything that jumped out at anybody? Okay, then we'll go to 6C. Does any board member have any comment, thoughts, anything? We're moving. Miss Maloney.
Just to belabor this since the heat is on now, so we got time. The comment that Mr. French made at the end of the lengthy item about just how wonderful it was to have public comment was just it really resonated with me, and so I really appreciated that comment, and the discussion that we had was really nice, and it was really productive, I felt, and so what could have been I think a very frustrating agenda item for the public and for us, for me, felt really positive, and so thanks for that.
Anybody else? Nothing else there? Okay. Then we're going to move on to final public comment. Here. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me jump backwards. 6C, is there anything that you really wanted to highlight in the?
The only thing I was going to highlight was
The
back
report?
to Commissioner Novak's point on the DMV multi-use path, and I need to
Sorry.
find the project. It's the one without a map.
7, page 7?
I don't know. Without a map? Page 7.
7th one of that.
Yes,
yeah.
page 7. Yeah, so we're coordinating, and it's not just this project, but we're coordinating with the district attorney's office and the state lands and their deputy attorney general's office on language related to easements. This is rolled up in some of those ongoing discussions. We're hopeful we can get that going and get an agreement with state lands for the easement for this path. That's one of the critical path items on this project is getting that done. There are some final environmental things that popped up, not to scare anybody, but the wandering skipper was a question came up on the wandering skipper on this project. So we're looking into that and seeing what that may or may not mean. So there you go.
Does anybody else have any questions on any of these that you want? Nope, no, good. Okay, now we're on, I forgot the one, sorry. Now we're on final public comment. Come on up, Denny.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I'm buying some time. Have to get my mind together and my heart together. This is a tough one for me. The 9/11 memorial is now near the pavilion and the train set, and I'm concerned about its safety. It's in an area where it's getting weathered, not only by the weather we have just nature-wise, but watering and such. And I feel that it should be reconsider the location And as I'm understanding, the location that it might be aimed towards would be the legislative park area in front of.
That's not before this board, just so
I
that you know, it's
understand
not in
that.
our jurisdiction.
But
Okay.
it's my last comment, and I'm.
But it's not within our jurisdiction of this board.
Okay, so
Okay.
found that out, so we'll
Yeah, there
drop
you
that
go.
one. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Lesson learned. My thing with your jurisdiction is that's not well understood. I tried to look up, okay, what's the jurisdiction and what all that, and I had trouble. So, and in fact, I had trouble with the agenda tonight. I couldn't get through it because of the way it was formatted on the computer. And I wasn't the only one, which makes me feel better, but sort of sad, that each time we have a meeting, we should have materials and the supporting materials available to us with some sense of comfort and knowledge that if we press this or push this, we're going to get this. And that didn't happen this time. So that put a lot of people a little bit back on their heels. And the other thing is that, again, I just can't tell you how good it felt to have y'all have such a fluent and flowing conversation with your public too. And thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Denny. Okay, I don't see any other public to have public comment. So just want to thank everyone for your attention this evening. It was a good meeting. Mahala, welcome. You slid in and traded Todd's slots. But hope you enjoyed a different committee, right? She goes, oh, this one's different. Don't you? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you're like, what'd you do here? Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone again for a great meeting and good input. And with that, oh, I'll just say, because I just thought, well, wait a minute, what's the date? Happy Thanksgiving, right? We won't see each other before that. So everybody be safe and have a good Thanksgiving. And we're adjourned. Thanks.